Welcome to this article on the Battle of Plassey. This was an extremely important battle in the history of India and helped the British expand their influence in the Indian subcontinent. This is an extremely important topic for the UPSC exam. Let's take a look. The Battle of Plassey was a decisive victory of the British East India Company over the Nawab of Bengal and his French allies on 23 June 1757 under the leadership of Robert Clive. Now, what was the British East India Company? Let's take a look. The East India Company was an English and later British joint stock company founded in the 1600s. It was formed to trade in the Indian Ocean region, initially with the East Indies, but it later expanded its influence over the entire Indian subcontinent and also took active part in the political and administrative activities of the region. The company eventually came to rule large areas of India, exercising military power and assuming administrative functions. The company rule in India effectively began in 1757 after the Battle of Plassey and lasted until 1858 when, following the Indian Rebellion of 1857, the Government of India Act 1858 led to the British Crown assuming direct control of India in the form of the new British Raj. Let's go back to the Battle of Plassey and see how it takes place. The battle took place at Plassey. Plassey is a village on the east bank of the Bhagirathi River, located approximately 50 kilometers north of the city of Chandranagar in Kaliganj city block in the Nadia district of West Bengal. The nearest major town is Beldanga. It has its own 2 local Gram Panchayat. On the banks of the Hooghly River, about 150 kilometers north of Calcutta and south of Murshidabad, the then capital of Bengal, Suba. The battle took place between Nawab Sirajuddaulah, the last independent Nawab of Bengal. It's important to note the word independent here because the British eventually took much more control of the Nawab position in Bengal and the British East India Company. Sirajuddaulah succeeded Alivardi Khan. Alivardi Khan was the Nawab of Bengal from 1740 to 1756. He toppled the Nasiri dynasty of Nawabs and assumed power himself. He is also known for his victory during the Battle of Burdwan against the Maratha Empire during the Maratha invasions of Bengal. Sirajuddaulah had become the Nawab of Bengal the year before, and he had ordered the English to stop the extension of their fortification. Robert Clive bribed Mir Jafar. Mir Jafar was the commander-in-chief of the Nawab's army. Robert Clive also promised him that he will be the Nawab of Bengal once Siraj is defeated. Finally, Clive defeated Sirajuddaulah at Plassey in 1757 and captured Calcutta. Let's take a look at who Mir Jafar is. Mir Jafar was a great military general who became the first dependent Nawab of Bengal. It's important to note the word dependent here. He was not independent anymore. His reign has been considered by many historians as the start of the expansion of British control of the Indian subcontinent in Indian history. And it was a key step in the eventual British domination of vast areas of modern-day India. Let's go back to the Battle of Plassey. The battle was preceded by an attack on British-controlled Calcutta by Nawab Sirajuddaulah and the Black Hole Massacre. What was the Black Hole Massacre? The Black Hole of Calcutta was a dungeon in Fort William, Calcutta, measuring 4.3 by 5.5 meters, in which troops of Siraj-ud-Dawla, the Nawab of Bengal, held British prisoners of war on the night of 20th June 1756. John Zephaniah Holwell, one of the British prisoners and an employee of the East India Company, said, after the fall of Fort William, the surviving British soldiers, Indian sepoys, and Indian civilians were imprisoned overnight in conditions so cramped that many people died from suffocation and heat exhaustion, and that 120 of 146 prisoners of war imprisoned there died. Modern historians believe that 64 prisoners were sent into the hole and that 43 died there. This picture shows a glimpse of the Black Hole of Calcutta, 20th June 1756. Let's go back to the Battle of Plassey. The British sent reinforcements under Colonel Robert Clive and Admiral Charles Watson from Madras to Bengal and recaptured Calcutta. Clive then seized the initiative to capture the French fort of Chandranagar. Let's look at the background of this capture. In 1756, war broke out between France and Great Britain, and Colonel Robert Clive of the British East India Company and Admiral Charles Watson of the Royal Navy bombarded and captured Chandranagar on 23rd March 1757. 10 miles north of Calcutta, Chandranagar was the administrative center of the French East India Company. Clive, determined to eliminate Siraj-ud-Dawla, chose the capture of the French Fort d'Orleans and Chandranagar as a first step. Let's go back to the Battle of Plassey. Tensions and suspicions between Siraj-ud-Dawla and the British culminated in the Battle of Plassey. The battle was waged during the 7 Years' War, and in a mirror of their European rivalry, the French East India Company sent a small contingent to fight against the British. What was the 7 Years' War? Let's take a look. The 7 Years' War from 1756 to 1763 was a global conflict, a struggle for global primacy between Britain and France, which also had a major effect on the Spanish Empire. In Europe, the conflict arose from issues left over unresolved by the War of the Austrian Succession 1740 to 1748, with Prussia seeking greater dominance. Long-standing colonial rivalries pitting Britain against France and Spain in North America and the Caribbean islands were fought on a grand scale with consequential results. In Europe, war broke out over territorial disputes between Prussia and Austria. Prussia was a German kingdom that constituted the state of Prussia between 1701 and 1918. It was the driving force behind the unification of Germany in 1871 and was the leading state of the German Empire until its dissolution in 1918. Austria is a modern umbrella term coined by historians to denote the numerous lands and kingdoms of the Habsburg dynasty, especially for those of the Austrian line. Britain, France, and Spain fought both in Europe and overseas with land-based armies and naval forces, like the Indian subcontinent. Let's go back to the Battle of Plassey. Siraj-ud-Dawla had a vastly numerically superior force and made his stand at Plassey. The British were worried about being outnumbered, and they formed a conspiracy with Siraj-ud-Dawla's demoted army chief Mir Jafar, along with others such as Yar Lutuf Khan, Jagat Seths, Umi Chand and Rai Durlab. Jagat Seths were a banking family and the title of the eldest son of the family. Mir Jafar, Rai Durlab and Yar Lutuf Khan thus assembled their troops near the battlefield on the battle day but made no move to actually join the battle. Siraj ad-Dawla's army with about 50,000 soldiers including defectors, 40 cannons and 10 war elephants was defeated by 3,000 soldiers of Colonel Robert Clive. The battle ended in 11 hours approximately. The Battle of Plassey is judged to be one of the pivotal battles in the control of the Indian subcontinent by the colonial powers. The British now wielded enormous influence over the Nawab, Mir Jafar, and consequently acquired significant concessions for previous losses and revenue from trade. The British further used this revenue to increase their military might and push the other European colonial powers such as the Dutch and the French out of South Asia, thus expanding the British Empire. Thank you very much for watching this episode on the Battle of Plassey.